here.
Okay.
I'm here now.
What is going on? Recording and not streaming. Um, Stop recording. And I don't know what's happening to OBS. Oh my gosh, I'm annoyed right now. I don't know what's going on with OBS. Hmm, well,
Is it normal, like when you click on the post of the video that would take you to the link, it says not online?
oh, you know what? I think we're live. Are we
Oh,
live?
well,
Can
it wouldn't
somebody,
be the first time we talked about a bunch of stupid
I'm no,
stuff at the
I'm,
beginning.
I'm no seeing it.
oh, God. I think there's a little delay. So, I'm going to have Kay introduce us then. Since we're already live, we can go ahead and. Um, so, Kay, do you want to introduce us to our show
Hey,
tonight?
yeah, welcome to our bookcast. We're reading we're reading Death and Justice by Mark Fuhrman. I'm Kay.
I'm Rhonda.
Um, Cherie's lurking.
Cherie, I don't think Cherie's going to be joining us tonight. Um, at least that's from what I understand. She's not feeling well. She's been ill for the last few days, and so today she's just kind of needed to stay in bed. So I ordered her to stay in bed today. So not that she listens to me. She doesn't have to listen to me because she's an adult. She can do what she wants. But um,
And
catnip's.
Alice. We have Alice too.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I was getting to Alice. She gets her own. She gets her.
Oh, she gets her own segment. Okay.
Well, she gets her own special introduction. At least for now. She's still new enough that she's. Thanks, JD. Yeah, I didn't realize I was live, and so we were just having just technical talk, I guess you could say. Um, but hi, Linda. Nice to see you, Susan, JD, Linda. Just Rhonda. Anybody else? Catnip. There's Catnip. And so I've been really busy in a different project that I've been immersed in this last week or so. And so I lost complete track of time today and didn't do very well at getting ready, but it doesn't matter because we'll be fine. But I want to say another special welcome to Alice, who is on our panel again. So, Alice, would you like to say hello to the people in the chat? Just make sure you're not muted, honey. Uh-oh, did I lose everybody? Oh, Alice,
No, she's muted, or she's
oh,
unmuted now.
Alice, you're gonna have to go out and come in. I think you're frozen, hun. You know, uh, are you back? Oh,
Am I back?
oh, you're back. So go ahead and say hello to the nice people in the chat.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see that you've joined us tonight.
Yes. How are you liking the book so far, Alice? How far are you?
I'm on chapter 5 now.
Ooh,
And it's an eye opener. I'll tell you that.
yeah. Well, yeah, it is. And you know what? I need to get busy getting chapter 7 read and downloaded. So, because you're catching up really quick, and I'm going to do really quick. So I'm going to get that done tonight, so you don't have to wait for me. Um, all right. Well, Kay, what would you like to start with?
Um, okay, so what's cool about this book is that each chapter is something different. So, it's doesn't matter if we drag it out like this,
Right.
having to, well, you can never rely on the communication at the prison to happen like it's supposed to. So there's always that. So the Guest House Murders, Chapter 2, this
Oh,
was Bob Macy's, what?
oh, you know what? I announced this as chapter 3. We
Well,
did.
remember
Yeah, we did.
on 1 and 2, and
Yeah, my bad.
I had covered Chapter 1 with Daniel, and then our phone call got canceled for Chapter 2.
I remember now. I'm sorry. Yes, the guest house
Our
murders.
communication skills are terrible, huh?
Really, they're not. We talk every day,
Just not about this.
just not about this. Okay, well, it's
Okay,
okay.
so this was June of 1980, and it was Bob Macy's first death penalty case. He had just been sworn in as district attorney, and this chapter really hit Daniel in a negative way because he just felt like all the shadiness, all the gut feelings and tunnel vision and everything that happened in his case. He felt like he just kept running into it over and over again in this case. So this case, I'll just read a couple paragraphs to start off.
Yeah, we don't know
Bob
the
Macy.
laws and rules about copyrights and stuff, so if I get kicked off of YouTube, I'll find out. But
Oh well.
right now, we're just reading segments of it, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And I'm not showing it, so you go ahead and read whatever you want, Kay.
Okay. Bob Macy was sworn in as Oklahoma County District Attorney on June 16, 1980. Less than 3 weeks later, a triple homicide was committed at a local motel. The Guest House Murders would be Macy's first death penalty case and one of his most controversial. On July 6, 1980, at approximately 2 a.m., Ray Peters, Lawrence Evans, and Marvin Nolan were shot and killed as they sat by the pool at the Guest House Inn Motel in Oklahoma City. The murder weapon was never found. Bullets and shell casings recovered at the scene showed the killer used a .45 caliber automatic with Winchester Western silver-tipped hollow point bullets. Several witnesses reported seeing a man near the pool area before the shooting occurred. After the witnesses heard gunshots, they saw the man run off, get into a waiting car, and drive away. Because of the crime's MO and the known criminal associations of the victims, authorities believe that the Guest House murders were an organized crime execution. Bob Macy was determined to keep organized crime from infiltrating Oklahoma City. I think he was a little late showing up for that battle, actually.
Oh,
So in this case, um, what happens is there are two eyewitnesses with, really sketchy pasts. They're prostitutes and drug addicts, and they end up, being the star witnesses in the case. So when Detective Dave McBride heard the description of the suspect, he instantly thought of someone that he knew, a guy named Clifford Henry Bowen. Detective McBride was the head of Oklahoma City PD's organized crime detail, and he later became the police chief. So he thought instantly that it was a guy named Clifford Henry Bowen, and Bowen had he had been investigated by Detective Dave McBride before. So, this was one of those things I feel like where, he just was bound and determined to strip this guy of his liberties. He just didn't like this guy. He had connections to the Dixie Mafia, and he wanted to take him down one way or another. There was another suspect, and it was a former Oklahoma City detective who was involved in trafficking narcotics, and his name was Harold Dean Behrens. So, um, let's see. Ray Peters, one of the victims, had been working for Behrens as a drug dealer. A month prior to the murders, Peters had been arrested in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, on charges of drunk driving and drug possession. Behrens got Peters out of jail, and he was really concerned about it. Peters was kind of spiraling out of control with his excessive drinking and drug use. And of course, Behrens felt like it was going to compromise his drug business. Um, Behrens had been doing, he started his drug business while he was still an OCPD detective. Um, let's see. So they end up investigating Bowen, basically just tunnel vision. He's their guy. These two, Mary Lee Chilton and Carrie Pitchford, they pick him out of a lineup. Um, Oddly enough, Bowen wore horn rimmed glasses, and no one neither of the witnesses mentioned the guy having glasses, much less horn rimmed glasses. So for the lineup, they made Bowen take his horn rimmed glasses off, and the two women identified him. There was speculation, there was questioning later about they just didn't know how, as far away as the women were, they didn't know how they could have really identified him from as far away as they said they were from him. Um, let's see, let me see if I can connect any of Daniel's notes to this part. Obviously, the tunnel vision of, just deciding to pick Bowen out and find all the, just really not searching not following the facts in search of the truth, but just, going full steam ahead to really, really, Macy just wanted to make sure this guy got convicted and got the death penalty. Um, let's see.
On very
Daniel says, oh, wait a minute, that's out of place.
while she's looking for that,
Yeah, thank you.
while she's looking for that, yeah, he got convicted and got the death penalty, but on evidence of DNA evidence, or forensic evidence is the right word actually, provided by our friend and favorite DNA analyst, Joyce Gilchrist. So there's going to be some controversy, right? So
Guaranteed.
Alice knows now. She knows. You guys don't know what you're
Nope.
Oh,
missing. You're missing a lot
I've
by not.
never, I've, I've not despised anybody like that in a long, long time. But that woman, I really want to take her out the back and kick her head in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's crazy. So the detectives showed the witnesses groups of two groups of 5 photographs, and they ended up picking Bowen out. Um, so they put a warrant out for Bowen's arrest and drug him in, and at the same time they put a the same day murder charges were filed against Harold Dean Behrens and John Doe in the guest house murders. Um, on August 29th, Bowen was interrogated by OCPD detectives. He had his attorneys present and was subsequently they took him into custody. Um, so Behrens was was arrested down in oh no, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Okay, so Bowen's down in Texas at the time, so they get this arrest warrant, and if you can imagine, Wild West Bob Macy going down to Texas to bring Bowen back himself. Um, the headlines in the newspaper the next day read, Oklahoma DA kidnaps prisoner. So I'm not
Oh.
exactly sure what all went down there, but I guess he finagled a way to have Texas turn him over to him. But they tried Behrens and Bowen separately. Behrens went to trial first, and he did not testify at Bowen's trial. Behrens did testify once during Bowen's trial. Let's see. Behrens stated that he did not know Bowen and had never seen him before. And the prosecutors offer Behrens a 10-year sentence for the 3 murders if he'll just say that he knew Bowen, but
Yeah.
he would not do it. Um,
I like how it says, I would gladly testify. Behrens replied, but I don't know the dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know
exactly.
what I mean? How can I say I know somebody when I don't even fucking know him? Are you real? I would have loved to have seen his face when he said that.
Yeah, because Bob Macy's not used to that kind of thing. There, well, a lot of DAs and prosecutors are making plea deals with people to get them to help string up the person they had tunnel vision for. So far they've used sketchy witnesses. They've basically tried to bribe this guy with a 10-year sentence for
A
3
lesser
murders.
sentence.
They
Mm-hmm.
could they couldn't even get a criminal to agree with them.
I
Exactly.
know.
So Behrens ends up getting convicted and getting a life sentence. Um,
It's almost like if you don't do what we need you to do, you're going to be the one to get the needle or the chair or the whatever.
Aye, that's exactly what it's like. I mean,
okay, so yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, that Bob Macy thinks he's judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does.
and he was,
Mm-hmm.
not much has changed in Oklahoma really at all from that. So it was interesting, because Bowen took the stand in his own defense, and he obviously denied committing the murders, and he had 12 alibi witnesses who all testified that he was at a rodeo in Tyler, Texas the night of the murder. So on the last day of the trial, Macy comes up with this harebrained idea to offer a new theory to the jury that basically Bowen could have chartered a Learjet and flown from a small airfield in Tyler to the downtown air park
Oh
in
my
Oklahoma
God.
City.
This is insane.
Uh, so Macy scrounges up a witness who will come and back up his story and say, yeah, that could be possible, and they could, leave the rodeo grounds and get to here in this amount of time, and he could be back. And he doesn't offer any evidence that shows that Bowen had actually done any of this. No flight logs. No, there's like no documentation that a Learjet left or landed in any of those places at all. Um, but regardless, as you can imagine, Bowen was found guilty and given the death penalty. He files for a new trial. Ineffective counsel. Judge overrules that and signs his death warrant. So then, during subsequent hearings, um, Bowen's lawyers are able to present evidence that shows that it would be impossible for a Learjet to land. I can't remember which airport. One of the airstrips was too short for a Learjet to land, and I think the other one was closed at the time that happened. So it was just completely impossible and disproven. Um, let's
Yep,
see.
it's insane. It was just simply insane.
Yeah, it was. So this, I don't know if Pat Williams, he's a Tulsa attorney. Has he appeared in this book before? Or have I just read this chapter a couple times and I'm
I don't think we've talked about Pat Wilson yet.
okay? So he's just making comments throughout this chapter. He was Bowen's appellate attorney and said later he called Macy's argument about the, the Learjet thing totally outside the record and false. So Bowen's appeal is pending before the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, and he files a second motion for a new trial based on newly discovered evidence and the prosecution's failure to disclose exculpatory evidence to the defense. So the newly discovered evidence involved a corrupt South Carolina policeman named Lee Crow, who enters the story now. Um, Apparently, let's see, if I'm missing anything here. So Lee Crow, I can't remember what his title was. He was a law enforcement agent in South Carolina, and he and his wife came, let's see, prior to the murders, Crow had lived with Patsy Peters, Ray Peters' ex-wife. Patsy had once shot Ray, so Ray is one of the three that got murdered. Patsy had once shot Ray when they were living together in Charleston. Crow had been in Oklahoma with Patsy visiting her family during the first week of July 1980. The night of the murders, he was 130 miles from Oklahoma City. He and Patsy left Oklahoma for South Carolina the day after the murders. Shortly after his return, Crow resigned from the Hanahan Police Department. So he comes to Oklahoma with a mustache and comes back to North Carolina without a mustache. He, he has a gun, uses the same bullets, but the police never did they never took Crow's gun and they never test fired it to see if it matched. Um, Prior to the arrest of Bowen and Barron's, investigators from South Carolina had been looking into the Peters killings for themselves. They became, because they believed it might have been connected to the disappearance of Ricky Seagraves. Peters and Seagraves. Are you guys all super confused with all these names? I had to read this chapter 3 times.
Yeah, this chapter has a lot of names and a lot of twists, so sorry about that, but that's just how it is. But it'll all come together at the end of
Peters
the chapter.
Peters and Seagraves had allegedly ripped off Paul Mazzell, the head of an organized crime in Charleston, on a 1978 drug deal involving Dilaudid. Barron's told the South Carolina investigators that Peters had been killed because he burned Mazzell and that the hitman had come to Oklahoma from Charleston. So, I mean, there were confidential informants involved in this. Let's see. So, South Carolina law enforcement considered Crow the prime suspect, but here you have two guys in Oklahoma that have already been convicted, and one sent to death row and one given a life sentence. Let's see. Like, just to demonstrate what a bad dude Crow is, one officer told the OCPD detectives about an incident involving a former girlfriend of Crow's who complained that a current boyfriend kept bothering her. The boyfriend was shot in the head 5 times with a small caliber handgun, and when Crow was asked about a similar weapon that he was known to have owned, he said he lost it.
Lost it. Surprise!
I lost it.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Because I'm always using my gun.
It just it drops out of my pocket. It slides into the car. I don't know where I'd lose that damn thing.
I just
Yeah,
can't keep up with my guns, man.
it's sitting in your evidence locker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh gosh, Alice, you're funny. You're killing me right now. Oh.
So, um, according to the police report, Crow has been eliminated as a suspect because Patsy Peters' mother said that she thought Crow had stayed at her house on the night of the murder, when in fact she was in Oklahoma City and she would have had no way of knowing if he was at her house in South Carolina or not. So, for whatever reason, she was covering for Crow. You can only imagine what that would be.
Hmm. I wonder.
So now we're having now a couple more OCPD detectives join the story. So after they interview Crow, Detective Bob Horn and his partner Bill Cook stated that he appeared extremely nervous and uncomfortable. The police didn't speak to Patsy's father until after Bowen's first trial, but he then told the police that Crow had stayed at their house that night. So, who knows at
Well,
this point.
yeah, it's very twisty and convoluted and full of lies and
So, he ends up, I mean, he ends up getting arrested, and um, let's see. Even if Lee Crow was not responsible for the guest house murders, Bob Macy should have told the defense about him. The prosecution is under a positive obligation to turn over all possibly exculpatory evidence to the defense under what is called discovery, Brady versus Maryland. Um, but as you guys know, that's just a
All I could do is
suggestion.
just laugh. I could just laugh.
It's just a suggestion, man.
Yeah, just a guideline. You don't have to really follow it. What's that? What's that, Alice?
Oh no, I
Yeah,
was just chuckling away because it's fucking ridiculous the shit they come out with.
I know.
yeah, yeah. While there are federal rulings that provide general guidelines concerning discovery, the specific laws and practices vary from state to state. At the time, Oklahoma had extremely limited discovery requirements, and many defense attorneys claim that Oklahoma County courts in particular remain very conservative, which is to say, pro prosecution in their rulings on discovery. Um, there was no discovery code in Oklahoma until the mid 1990s.
Crazy.
What?
That's insane.
Prior to that, the defense attorneys had to file a motion for discovery and exculpatory evidence. Really, not much has changed, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Still, you send a list of items that you want to subpoena, and they say no, and you have to file a motion to compel. So it's just all a bunch of games. It's a
Right.
bunch of games and hoops, and it's freaking disgusting when innocent people are sitting in jail while it's happening.
I mean, what I found that one of the ridiculous things about the laws over there is that in a lawsuit, like a civil suit, you get mere discovery evidence, you get access to mere discovery evidence than the actual defense lawyers get. And I just don't understand that at all. I mean, that is surely your defense lawyers should be getting more discovery evidence than any other person because they've got to go through it all and prove it all. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even though the burden of proof is on the state, um, you have to assume the state is going to come very overly prepared. So the defense has to be able to defend them, to defend their client, and it isn't possible the way that they, with that law that they have to make a request for the discovery. That's just ludicrous to me.
Yeah, it really is. So
Because
at the time of, yep, go
so,
ahead.
sorry, really quick. What it does is it takes away. Well, I would think that it would set up defense counsel or the defense, for all sorts of constitutional violations that they could file on appeal. And yet in Oklahoma, and probably other states too, guys, I know I'm always picking on Oklahoma, but that's the state where I'm working on these cases. So it's just going to be Oklahoma, but they are especially awful. But, it takes away the presumption of innocence. If the defense has to go and file a request for the discovery, that is taking away, I feel like that is chipping away at the presumption of innocence. And I have been lobbying to myself basically lately, the last few months, that, they just need to rewrite the damn Constitution and just say it. You are guilty until proven innocent in a court of law. That's the way it needs to be said now, because that's exactly the way a lot of these cases are going, and not just in Oklahoma, but probably every single state in the country. So
Yikes! I don't want that to happen.
I don't either, but that's what doesn't that's what's happening. That's what's going on. So
I know we've really got to find some representatives and senators who want to understand the problem and do something about it. Um, you know, I think his name's David Cicilline. He's one of the House impeachment managers. He was a former um, public defender.
yeah,
But it's people like that that might listen, but
right,
it just doesn't. I don't know. I mean, how hard are people working on getting those things changed? It doesn't seem like there's a big outcry really.
I
right,
mean, but that's like a lot of your states and that, though. I mean, there's only so many out of your 50 odd states that have actually abolished the death penalty, or
Hmm.
you know what I mean. So it needs for the other ones to follow suit as well, and it's maybe going to take maybe a younger generation who is against that kind of stuff and everything to actually make the difference, because I think a lot of the lawyers and things like that, especially in your Supreme Courts and everything, are older, like in there between 60 and 80, 70, 80, something like that. So they're of an older generation. And I think no matter how many times you try and change people's opinions on a lot of things, some of them are set in their own way, and
right,
nothing's going to take them out of that, you know? I think a lot of that comes into like the court proceedings. I mean, the only example I can really give is Hamilton, Brendan's on bank hearing,
right,
um, the way he was making it that the police weren't coercing Brendan, they were just asking him questions and things like that, you know. And to me, he's in an older mindset, and he's on the side of the police.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's. I mean, the time for us now in the United States for change is now. So, um, I think hopefully that will be the case. And we'll.
Everything's so emotional though because if a bunch of groups of people could come together around a table and realize that yeah, okay, Black Lives Matter, right? The wrongful conviction community, they're right.
All right.
All of these people that think like Black Lives Matter, they hate Daniel Holtzclaw because of what they think he did to 13 women. But they fight for a cause that they believe in and they fight so hard, and I fight for the same cause. But a lot of them haven't even looked into the case of Daniel Holtzclaw
Right.
to see. It just I don't understand how it became acceptable to just believe the women because you do not want to question someone who may have been sexually assaulted. I'm sorry, that doesn't leave any room for false allegations that are happening all the time. You have to get to the bottom of that. Yeah, being sexually assaulted is a horrible thing. I mean, you're traumatized, you're re traumatized when you have to come forward and tell the story. You're seriously re traumatized prepping for trial and having to live through the trial and all the press. It's a horrible thing. But
Well,
Yeah,
if the allegations are false, it's really a horrible thing.
I think there needs to be some adjustments made to the rape shield law. Um, personally, but anyway, I'm getting way off
We
track.
just keep getting farther and um, farther and farther. We're taking the accused rights away one by one,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
all as
There,
yeah, all in an effort to protect the victim who may not be a victim.
Who could possibly not be a victim,
yeah.
but we're not allowed to question them. I'm sorry, go ahead, Alice.
No, I was just going to say that. I mean, there is it is awful, and it's no nice to go through, and a lot of them that go up to court and things like that do have to relive it. But if the investigation was done properly in the beginning, the way it's supposed to be, where it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty,
Right,
Yeah.
then it might be a different story. But the fact is, it needs to start at the bottom, and it needs to start with the police, not just having a gut feeling
yeah,
that
yeah,
Right.
because these women that or this woman has said that this man has done it. And I mean, what you've got to remember in Daniel's case is some of these women never came forward. The police went looking for them and
Mhm.
then said, "Oh, we've had a tip that you've been sexually assaulted." Bollocks! You haven't had a tip. You're fucking digging because you haven't got a case against them, but you need to do something because of the situation that was happening at the time.
right,
And
Yeah.
that's how I see how the investigation of Daniel went. It's horrible that I do believe that some of these women were attacked by a police officer, but it certainly wasn't bloody Daniel
right,
that that done it. So, and there was an officer that worked at that same precinct who fitted the description perfectly, who never really got investigated. That's that's just completely wrong. It really is, and he should have been investigated as much as Daniel should have been investigated.
right,
Yeah, there should have been other suspects. I mean, it really drives home to me that they didn't need any other suspects because for whatever reason they were taking Daniel out, and they did.
yeah. That was the goal.
Yeah. Okay, so at the time of Bowen's first trial, prosecutors they were obliged to turn over only what had been formally requested by the defense. In the Bowen case, Raymond Berger, the lead defense counsel for the first trial, had asked one of the prosecutors for all exculpatory materials. And they gave him this small folder that really didn't include anything about Lee Crow, um, Frank Wright. Frank Wright was another of Bowen's attorneys, and he asked Macy if there were any other suspects in the case, and Macy had told him um, that there were not.
Of course he would tell that. He would tell them that.
And then that came up at trial, and Macy said, I don't recall that. And then finally said, well, okay. I mean, I guess if you say that took place, I'm going to have to assume maybe it did.
But I don't
So
recall.
yeah, but Bowen's appellate lawyers argued that the prosecution uh, was withholding of the Lee Crow information, and that was a Brady violation. Um, Bowen's attorneys also produced a witness, Deanna Burris, and she signed an affidavit saying that she heard Lee Crow and Patsy Peters plan the murder of Ray Peters, um,
Hmm.
which was, you know, if her credibility wouldn't have gotten smashed, Macy ends up referring to her as a dopey prostitute. Um,
Wow. He's so
So,
classy.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so Judge Naphi, let's see, this is going to be Crow's judge. Is that right?
Bowens.
Judge, pardon me?
It's Bowens.
Oh, Naphi, Bowen's judge. Okay. He decides to hold the evidentiary hearing, and during the hearing, Burris, the dopey prostitute, she testifies that she had shared an apartment with Crow and Patsy, and um, it started. She said with Patsy wanting to have Ray knocked off, and Crow said he would do it. She said under oath, she said that Crow had asked Patsy to lure her husband to Charleston, where Crow could, quote, take care of him, unquote. That she wasn't able to lure him to Charleston, so I guess that's when they made the trip to Oklahoma and did it themselves. Um,
Such nice people.
this nice people, that's true. So when Burris first told her story to the South Carolina agent as part of the Ricky Seagraves investigation, um, that that agent was unaware of the guest house murders and thought that Burris's drug use um, cast doubt on her credibility. So, we know drug addicts are commonly used as informants because they have knowledge of criminal behavior and they can be exploited, which really, hit a nerve with Daniel, that part. I'm not sure how good this book is for him to read because he was really pissed off talking about chapter two. But
I'm sure.
not enough to put it down because he was like, "Are you on chapter 4 yet?" Like,
You should
no,
say,
hold that thought, dude.
are you on chapter 11 yet?
I am not on chapter 4.
Still.
Oh man.
Oh
All
gosh.
right. Let's see. Burris Burris also said that two Oklahoma City detectives had visited her in South Carolina and told her that I didn't know what I was getting myself into and that I shouldn't come to testify because Lee Crow is a dangerous man.
That's what they told her. You don't know
The
what
two
you're getting
detectives
yourself. Yeah.
told her that. I wonder why.
Couldn't be anything nefarious, right?
Yeah, yeah. So she said, yeah, she was afraid. Um, she was afraid of Crow, but she agreed to testify anyway. She said, because I don't want to see anybody put to sleep for something he didn't do. So she wouldn't be scared away. But her credibility, ends up being brought forward and questioned, and they really just run her through the ringer.
It only work. The confidential informant only works if they are working for the state and they're doing what the state wants them to do.
Yeah, that's right. So in December of '84, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals they affirmed Bowen's conviction and ruled that no new trial was warranted. Um,
That's a common theme, isn't it?
it really is, just rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Um, mm, mm, mm. After the Court of Criminal Appeals issued its ruling, Macy said he was tickled pink.
Tickle pink. I am just tickled
He
pink that
was
my case was upheld. Ugh. I'm just
I'm
glad he's.
especially happy to see this in spite of his well-publicized opposition to the death penalty.
Hey, T1 is asking Kay if Daniel has a good sense of humor.
Um, that's a good question. I mean, we talk about a lot of serious stuff. Um, I don't know. I guess that's a good question for his sister.
I was just gonna say, I know that Jenny has said in other interviews and things, over the years, um, I've heard her make comments about, he's funny and, all the different things that she has said about him. But, I can imagine that being in a position that he's in, that he's been thrown in, where his life is literally meant to be spent, for the next 3 lives that he's going to live in
Yeah.
prison. And I don't know, I would imagine, I don't know, it probably chips away, probably chips away at your sense of humor a little bit at least. I mean,
Well, the other thing is that the phone calls are either too short or um, interrupted. Like
yeah,
the feed gets interrupted 2 and 3 times during a 20-minute call. Um, like I think it was yesterday that it, the screen froze with 3 minutes left on the call and it never came back. So it's like you're in the middle of a story, you don't get to say goodbye. That's the kind of crap it is. But hey,
that's ridiculous.
I'm glad they finally got calls that were longer than 10 minutes because that was particularly challenging.
To try to get a
You
10-minute conversation.
Oh man, you just figure out what you're going to talk about, I guess, after the little pleasantries, and
Right.
then it's over. You can't really, maybe one person can tell a story and then it's done. Um, I know he does like to tease people, but he's just a really it's weird to say he's just a really gentle kind of um, guy. He's
Quiet and gentle and
He
kind and
doesn't match his stature for
right.
sure.
Yeah,
Definitely doesn't match his stature. Yeah.
for sure. That's a good
Um,
explanation.
let's see. Where am I?
Well, we want to definitely explain Bowen's at this point. Bowen's execution is only 3 weeks away. Um, so, hey, Shaz, you have Alice is with us again tonight. So Cherie is not with us. She's not been feeling well for the last couple of days, so I gave her the night off. Um, anyway, so yeah, Bowen's execution was only 3 weeks away, and Zimmerman filed for stay of execution. The stay was granted, and the U.S. District Judge Thomas Brett held a hearing on possible, probably not likely, but possible Brady violation and ineffectiveness of counsel. That's I can't even imagine that. Oh my God, I can't even imagine that back and forth in your emotions.
Yeah, it's weird to, that Daniel doesn't get his hopes up about any appeal. He expects it to be turned down. He says that if, he can't get his hopes up and then be disappointed like that.
Right. I don't blame
He
him.
knows he's going to get out one day, but he just can't hang everything on each hearing or appeal.
No, he'll just be taking it day by day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he says you have to get in a groove and you have to adjust to how things are and you just go with the flow and make the best of it. Make the best that it can be. He has an incredible attitude. Um,
You would have to.
it's
Have to. Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
what boggles my mind is the fact that when he does get out, he still wants to hopefully be a police officer after what they've done to him.
Yeah.
I know, isn't that crazy? I would be scared.
I would be like, you's done that to me. Yous were supposed to have my back. You know what I mean? And yous didn't have my
Right.
back. But he's no. He's like, I want to be back in that family unit type thing, and they didn't have his back at the time. And it just goes to show you the kind of character that he has got. You know what I mean? For him to be
Yes.
thinking, hopefully one day when I do get out here, I can be a police officer again.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I
I mean, he was really good at it. I was watching the impeachment hearing today and watching, the insurrection and thinking how horrible it would be to be one of the police officers who had to stand up and fight in a situation like that. And that's super extreme, like war. But
Well, some of them were explaining it like it was like they hadn't seen like they were since they were in Afghanistan.
yeah, like
Now that's
right,
Armageddon.
saying something.
Yeah.
right. I mean, some of the video is, I mean, they keep bringing out more and more shocking video. It totally is sickening. But it's, to think that Daniel was so confident in handling himself in any situation because of his physical abilities, because he was strong. I hate to get too far. Well, I might save this story for the end if we have time, but he a story about when he was first on the force and he wanted to get in the mix, and um, so he puts himself into a situation and um, just to show the people around him how he can handle himself. But it ends up being I'll just tell you, yeah, now that I've teased you like this. So,
Now that we have this much information.
yeah, that was too much. So, okay, so he hears this call. It's a murder suspect, and he's fleeing in a car, so it's a high speed chase. He gets into the mix. The guy ends up jumping out of his car after, like, I don't know, probably 20 miles, 15 or 20 miles of a chase. Daniel jumps out of his car, starts chasing this guy. The guy's running. Daniel says it's snowy, it's like sleet and muddy outside. And so this guy's running and jumping fences, and Daniel follows him. He jumps the first fence. They get to the second fence. The guy is jumping it, and Daniel said it's one of those things like, in the cartoons where you can almost reach him, but you're either gonna get him or you're gonna miss and fall on your
Fall on your
face.
face.
So he just, instead of jumping the fence, he just ran right through the fence and knocked the fence down.
Oh,
The
I
guy
bet he
runs
did.
away, knocks the air out of Daniel. I mean, just and knocks the living breath out of him.
Oh, wow.
Uh, at the time, he wonders how's he, broken a rib and pierced a lung or whatever.
Oh my
So he's
gosh.
trying to make his way back to the patrol car because the guy ducks between two houses and is gone. And he can't get his breath, and the officer's saying, just jump in my car, because by then they have the dogs out and they're afraid the dog's gonna bite Daniel because he's injured.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he ends up, yeah. Anyway, yeah, he said he made the newspaper with that.
That's funny.
But that was how he ended up getting suggested for gang assignment was for his initiative to jump into the mix and, not be afraid. He said it was for, the adrenaline was going. He said, of course, I'm chasing a murder suspect. I assume he has a gun. Of course. I have my gun out. I have my flashlight out. And he said it was just
Defense was in
completely.
his right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, where are
you
we
get in that situation and your what is that called? Muscle memory, I guess. Maybe it's not muscle memory, but your instinct is just to, well, fight or flight. Um, and he's a police officer and he's trained in that mode of fight, and so I can imagine that that's exactly where the mind goes, and probably what he was.
No even up on his top.
Yeah, not even, yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably just didn't even think. It just did, think. Don't have time to
If I
think, I
can't,
gotta do.
if I can't jump here, yeah, I'm going to go through you.
And I just have a visual of that, and
Exactly.
I think it's kind of funny and cool at the same time. But I do want to read this one part, because I think this is important to hear, or I found it interesting. At the federal hearing, Raymond Berger testified that 80 to 90% of the prosecutors in Macy's office think Bowen is innocent. Berger also said that Macy would not have given him the information about Lee Crow even if he had filed a formal discovery motion. What a dick. And then
Right.
it's, quote, prosecutors of Oklahoma, almost exclusively of Oklahoma, will hide things from defense attorneys, Berger said. Oklahoma has a reputation for not complying with Brady. Who in the hell does Oklahoma think they are?
Well,
Right.
they're just people who have been doing things the same way for a really long time,
And getting away
surrounded
with it.
by a bunch of Republicans who vote Republican in the state, and we have Republican thought processes, and hang 'em high, man, hang 'em high.
Yeah,
Law and order,
right. At any
just in
cost.
case, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. And
He probably did
we're gonna
else
hear
back.
about some cases coming up, possibly in chapter 3, where it's, well, no, it's not chapter 3. Anyway, there are several cases where you're gonna hear that kind of attitude. Well, might not have done it, but he did something. He might not have
He
done
did
this one, but
there.
he did something. So,
Right.
right. Okay, sorry, Kay, carry on.
Oh, that's all right. So during the federal proceedings, Bowen's lawyers subpoenaed the homicide book, it was a loose leaf binder that had all of the investigative reports and intelligence information that the OCPD detectives had collected in the murders, including a lengthy report about Lee Crow.
Hmm,
The detectives had given the homicide book to the prosecutors in August of 1980, but it wasn't turned over at all to the defense during discovery.
it's blah. Who's worse, Oklahoma or Wisconsin?
They're both terrible, man.
Oklahoma
Both.
City or Manitowoc or MTSO or whatever. Yeah,
Both
Yeah,
are just as bad as each other, except the only thing is Wisconsin doesn't have the fucking death penalty.
right. Yeah,
no
good point.
kidding.
Good
After
point.
the
But
hearing,
on you go.
Judge, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I just got to say on you go.
After the hearing, Judge Brett overturned Bowen's convictions and held that Oklahoma could retry him for the murders. Um, which do they retry him? They ordered him released from death row. Macy files a motion asking the judge to stay Bowen's release pending an appeal. Brett denies the motion, but he does, but he orders Bowen returned to prison and said he has to pay $100,000 appearance bond. But the state officials had been waiting in the courtroom in case he was arrested or in case he was released, um,
Just slap the
to
cups right
arrest
back
him.
on him. Yeah.
Just keep it going. That doesn't that seem like that seems like
I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's right. It's just like, man, they just can't let go. They just are not going to
no.
let
I
go.
mean, they're going off the fact that the two ladies saw him, um, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
Really,
it. That really is it. There's no other evidence. And that's,
and then you've got Macy, who we already know that once he decides someone is guilty, there's no convincing him otherwise. So Macy appeals Judge Brett's decision to the 10th Circuit Court, which not only upheld Brett's ruling, but went further, saying that the Lee Crow evidence creates reasonable doubt that Bowen was the killer. The court found that Macy's withholding of the Crow evidence raises serious questions about the manner, quality, and thoroughness of the investigation that led to his arrest and trial. They said the homicide book, which had not been turned over, was characterized as the smoking gun. The three judges wrote in a strongly worded 51-page decision. A defense lawyer of less than heroic skill could have theorized that the state found it easier to charge an admitted gambler and ne'er-do-well rather than a police officer, even an allegedly corrupt one. So, if the defense had known about Lee Crow at trial, the 10th Circuit concluded the reliability of the identification procedures could have been undermined and the witness impeached.
yeah.
And then in the book, it has a little bit of testimony from the two witnesses.
You want to read those back and forth together? Or?
If you want. Sure.
Okay. I'll do the question and you can be Bob Macy.
Well,
Just so you guys know, she's going to kill me for saying this.
Hey, then don't say it. I don't know what you're going to say.
You do?
You say too much all the time.
I know, and everybody knows that. So I'm really taking chances of, people coming to our YouTube shows because they know they're just going to hear a lot of wah, wah, wah. But having said that, okay, fine, I won't say it. Okay, you're gonna be the answerer. Okay, so we're gonna just read a little trial stuff out of a. So this is with to two witnesses were the prosecution's whole case, and Bob Macy himself admitted this in court. So, question: if you take out the testimony of Mary Chilton, who had misidentified someone else earlier, and Carrie Pitchford, there is no case against Harry Bowen, is there?
There is not a total case. There's a partial case.
Could you have gotten? I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to laugh. Could you have gotten a conviction on the evidence you had, subtracting Mary Chilton and Carrie Pitchford?
No. So, and if these witnesses had been impeached, which the Lee Crow information could easily have done, Macy had no case at all. He admitted this as well. You want to do this section or no?
Yeah, I can. I'm just getting an error message. Can you guys in the chat hear us or see us or
Yeah.
what? You can?
Well, I can hear you.
Well, you're in Discord with me though. It's telling me my stream status is really poor, so I don't know if they can even.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah,
because
just keep going. I don't know if they can hear us. They great. If not, I guess we'll fix it next time. Okay, go
you want
ahead.
to
Well,
do
they're
the
saying, yeah, they
question.
can hear us.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do the question. Now, Mr. Macy, let me ask you this question. If the testimony of Mary Chilton and Carrie Pitchford had been impeached at trial significantly, or their identification in court had been significantly attacked or impeached, is there a reasonable probability that Bowen would be free today?
There was a serious attempt to impeach it.
That wasn't my question, Mr. Macy. Had they been impeached because their testimony was the heart of the case, isn't there reasonable probability that the verdict would have been not guilty?
That's true.
Oh boy.
So also Chilton's credibility was put into question because she had undergone hypnosis, and so they were totally discrediting her. Um, see, I don't want to skip anything before he gets out. So Bowen's retrial, he does end up getting a retrial, and it's set for the summer of '87. But before the trial, one of the witnesses died under what Bob Macy later called unusual circumstances. Mary Chilton, she had been visiting her sister in rural Virginia, and she became ill in a restaurant. Was flown by helicopter to a hospital, where she died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Hmm.
What
I'm
causes a cerebral hemorrhage? I can't speak today.
Bob Macy.
Well, I mean, like, would poison or something? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah,
That's so.
poison probably.
I'm just so glad you said that
Would
because
someone poison her?
every time I've read this, I'm so cynical now that I thought, okay, well, they were in there fucking with her food, or sorry, messing with her food or something. And I just, oh gosh, yeah. So
Well, so the district judge rules that her previous testimony can't be used at the retrial, so now they're screwed. Um, so let's see. Miss Cannon's ruling. Let's see. Jump in there if you see it before I do the ruling.
the ruling, oh sorry, this so Macy had said that when he was asked about other suspects, he distinguished between viable suspects and those who had been eliminated, and he said that Bowen was the only viable suspect ever. Like nobody else was viable except for Bowen, and so if the defense had asked if he had considered other suspects, he would have turned over the Crow material, but they didn't ask. So
It's
it's
just,
they didn't ask, and so they didn't know they were supposed to ask for something. But anyway, the Tenth Circuit Court didn't buy this, and according to the district attorney's analysis, if a prosecutor believes that there's another viable suspect who exists months before a capital trial, a capital murder case, he's obligated to dismiss the charges against the defendant. Um, but that wasn't going to happen, and the request for all other suspects therefore must necessarily imply former or discarded suspects. So the 10th Circuit was like, yeah, no, we're pretty good to just pretty much let you do whatever the hell you want to, Mr. Macy, but yeah, we're gonna nix this one a little bit.
In the Bowen case, Oklahoma County law enforcement ignored evidence that would have exonerated their suspect, and much like we've seen in Daniel's case, where had they not used his own police records to reverse it, engineer a case against him, if they had followed the evidence, it would have never happened, because Janie Liggins, if they would have followed the evidence, they couldn't have filed charges on him with her because everything supported Daniel's story. I mean, there were several opportunities for DNA, and none of them were there. I think the most damning thing is her saying that Daniel put his hands on the car and made her put her hands on the car. But then you look at the photographs of the car, and that was obviously a lie because just like on the floor of the garage at Stephen Avery's thing, you can't recreate the dirt.
Right.
No.
You disturb the dirt on a car with a handprint, you're not going to be able to cover that up with some dirt so nobody, I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense. But, they were never looking for the truth. Sherry Ellis, they weren't short black man. Oh yeah, we know
Oh,
I
that
think
was
What was that?
Daniel.
what? Okay. Um,
What did she say? I didn't hear her.
what we know who did this to you.
Oh, 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 oh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought,
Isn't that what we both said?
yeah, I didn't hear you guys. That's why I missed the chuckle. I don't like being left out of things. I'm just teasing. Go ahead. Sorry. Carry on.
it's It's very troubling that Bowen went to death row without someone within OCPD or Macy's office raising an objection about the Lee Crow information or the lack of evidence against Bowen. But that's just what they do. Once Bowen was presented as a suspect, Macy never seemed to have considered anyone else. Macy
Yeah.
was in the middle of his first re-election campaign. His opponent was Mike Gassaway, a criminal attorney who had beaten him in a previous murder case, the Royal Russell Long case that we talked about in one of the DNA episodes, I think. So prior to the election, Gassaway had been charged with felony counts of failure to file state tax returns. Gassaway said he decided to run against Macy because the charges were Macy's retaliation for the Long case, although he offered no proof that Macy was behind the tax charges. But that's the kind of stuff that happens in Oklahoma too. If you mess with the DA, they will hurt you.
Yeah.
Macy won re-election with 79% of the vote because why? Because we're Oklahoma and we like tough on crime people.
You
I
know what?
cannot wait to get out of here.
I like tough on crime too, but I like tough on crime when the person is actually guilty.
Aye, on true crime.
Right. Like, they actually committed a crime. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, exactly. Sadly, Bowen died in 1996 of natural causes, but, he was a career criminal.
oh, well, then he deserved to be on death row. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying,
No,
I say sadly, I mean, I'm sure he didn't change his stripes one bit. That's all he had known.
right.
But
He had the money to.
it doesn't matter whether he robbed houses 5 days a week. He was still entitled to due process.
Yeah. You need to get him on something real. I mean, obviously they have the opportunity to get him for something that he really did if he's a career criminal.
Right. No, I was kidding. I basically, because that was Bob Macy's attitude well, even if he didn't do it, he's guilty of something. He's guilty of all this other stuff, so it's okay that he's on death row. So,
Yeah, Furman closes the chapter by saying, as unjust as his trial and conviction might have been, it's hard to feel sorry for him.
right.
So,
It is. It
man,
is.
I hope the next chapters don't have 87 characters. That was a little bit much.
That one was hard. In fact, when I read that second chapter, I was like, "Oh my God, this is what it's going to be like," because my brain can't process like that. At that point, I was going to need a movie with actors and faces to put to the names because it was really, really like a lot going on and a lot of characters and um, but but the fluff on the outside, I guess, was definitely interesting and
Yeah.
so.
Let's see.
I will tell you, and I know I say this every time, but I'm telling you what, the case that's going to come up next week in chapter 3 that I was 100% ready for today to do.
Oh gosh.
I had sent links to the mods and everything. I was all ready to go with this next, but it's my fault. I knew you did say that. We did decide last week we're going to do chapter 2 today, and I just forgot. But we're going to spend some time talking about Joyce Gilchrist in chapter 3 next week, and we're going to give you some pretty. I mean, not. I'm going to try to make sure I get some really good notes together to give you a really good idea of this case that we're going to talk about next week. It involves a criminal named uh, Malcolm Rent Johnson. And we discussed Malcolm Rent Johnson briefly when we did our Gilchrist podcast in October. Uh, and you're just going to have to go and listen to chapter 3 and come back next week, next Thursday, and be ready to come on the panel and chat with us about it because it's got a pretty intense, well, it gets more intense as the book goes on, but it's got a pretty good story that's going to come up with Malcolm Rent Johnson. So, and my mods will be ready. So, um, I bet.
And I'll remember where I'm supposed to be.
Oh my gosh! Hey, Jack. I am glad you could come in just as we're getting ready to say goodbye. I know you're busy though. I'm just teasing, but I'm glad you're here. So what overall did Daniel give you any thoughts about I'm so late, this must be yesterday or tomorrow. Did Daniel have any overall thoughts about the chapter, K?
I mean, just the ones I added. He just really, was pointing out every time that the whole railroading and tunnel vision and um, having questionable witnesses come up with a miraculous story and being able to identify someone and how
It-
how they can how police can accept their credibility but not his.
Yeah.
He related everything to his case.
Oh, I'm sure.
um,
oh, definitely. I mean,
it just
the
the names are
resemblances.
different. Yeah.
Exactly. Just
Exactly. Yeah, it's the names that are different, but the scenario is the same.
yeah.
Tunnel vision, the witnesses coming forward with nonsensical stories, changing
Hmm.
versions to the police's narrative, everything like that. It all fitted. I don't want to say nicely, but that's the only way I can describe it now. Is it kind of fitted nicely in what Daniel's experienced, so I can understand how this chapter has affected him a lot more than maybe what some of the other chapters are going to affect him.
Hmm. Yeah, just the manipulation of the system. um he kept bringing that up, and just he's just disgusted by the corruption and the shadiness and all of the having the one of the detectives be a drug dealer while he's still a detective, and just all of that shadiness that I don't know if he knew any of that was going when he was on the force, but with the department. But I think he kind of, kept to himself and did his job. But it seems like you would hear things, but it's just not something that you would talk about on a recorded phone call. So
Right,
Yeah.
there are just a lot of things that we don't talk about.
right. Or you can't. In some cases, you can't even really write about a lot of stuff too.
No,
Um,
no, and I mean, especially with his, especially having pending things coming up,
right,
you never know. I mean, you have to expect that you're going to be here having to answer for things that you've said or written, or letters you've received, conversations that you've had that are recorded. You're going to be hearing those in court and having to, what about this? Who's this? Who's that person? What does this mean? They
right.
can twist anything.
Oh
So,
yeah.
we try to
And that's why you don't, you know,
try not to say anything they can use against him.
yeah. You can't even mention the weather because Jesus, there's a lot of weather talk that goes on in some of in some of those 13 accusers cases. So have to be careful about that. You know. Yeah, it's just anyway. Um well, I mean, I know it might seem like, and maybe it isn't necessarily great for him to be reading this, but I think if the way I look at it is, it's not just like Daniel's just a one-off. There is clearly a problem in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County. It has a long history of corruption, and unfortunately, Daniel, T1, you're such a nerd. T1 says, anyone else's wrench tastes funny? No? Okay. I'm trying to do a show here. But
He's nuts.
he is crazy. Anyway, and so I don't know. There's just no way that to make him feel better. I mean, I don't expect that to make him feel better, but it just proves that it's just a serious corruption problem in Oklahoma City or Oklahoma County, whatever you want to narrow it down to. I don't know, but nonetheless, we are going to keep reading this book, and Daniel's going to keep reading, and hopefully we can catch up to him in chapter 4 before before we get there in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't even let him tell me about it. No,
No spoilers.
else.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Are there any other questions from anybody in the chat? There's been lots of weather talk and stuff like that, and that's fine. I don't even care. I'm not necessarily entertaining, but do you have any other questions that thanks T1. Do we have any other questions from anybody in the chat, or no? Okay. Well, that's okay. If you're not interested in listening by now, I think if you don't listen before next week and get to chapter 3 and through chapter 3, I think by the time you get done hearing about everybody in the chat's got a wrench. That's funny. Oh, no, not Shaz. I'm so sorry, Shaz. But by the time we get done with chapter 3 next week, hopefully I can present it. We can present it in a way that will definitely um, make you just like thirst for um, more of it, and you'll want to catch up and make sure that you're on what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, you're where we're at. You're caught up with us, because we would love to have more of you join us on the panel to talk about uh, each chapter. I really, really want that. I really want that. So please, everybody, try. I know nobody has anything better to do, no other cases that they're working on or anything else, but I really, really want that. I want you guys to catch up and join us on the panel to talk about it. T1 says, serious question. Do any of these cases have departments that were well known troubled officers transferred destination? Um, I don't know. Kay would have to probably answer that. I mean, I really haven't heard or read anything like that, but I really stick with just the one division. Kay, do you know of
What
any of
was the
these?
question?
T1 says, do any of these cases have departments that were a well-known troubled officer's transfer destination? Like maybe, I don't know, people like
Hmm.
maybe Jeff Sellers or Alexander Edwards, I don't know, people like that maybe.
You know, I mean, there are people that I wondered where they came from when they transferred, like, to sex crimes, but I don't know how to find out that information. I mean, I guess you could search the newspapers for promotions or something. I don't. Other than that, I don't know. But
It'd be
sorry, I
interesting.
can't.
Oh, that's okay. I
If,
definitely think it would be interesting to find out. I mean, we're doing a lot of deep diving in Daniel's case right now, and I think those are some things that, we're looking at names and things. I mean, we're just digging and trying to get as much as we can. So, finding out something like that, could be helpful or useful. You never know. So it's definitely something we could try to look into when when we're not, so far down another rabbit hole that we have time. Um,
Aye, because that was something I couldn't get my head around. Is the fact that an officer in, say, Wisconsin can have misconduct and everything like that, and then just go to get sacked for there, but then just go to the next county over and get rehired there.
yeah.
And
So
that just
yeah, but if you stand up for what's right, if an officer stands up for what's right, and like if an officer stood up for Daniel and said, "Hey, this is wrong," they would lose their job and never find another job
right,
for not going along.
they or they
aye,
could find
true.
themselves in Daniel's situation.
Mm-hmm.
So T1
Yeah, I
says
mean, aye, that is
basically, he says basically the departments are known to transfer troubled officers versus charging them, and that could very well be. Um,
When we have seen a lot of people, instead of getting in trouble for wrongdoing, instead of them having to deal with that, they make the people take early retirement and then look at their personnel file because, it's their personnel file. So you never know what the internal investigation was about. They just get to retire and
yeah,
get the money.
get the money. There you go. That's pisses me off. That kind of brings me to another, uh, you know, when you said we don't get to look at their personnel files, or people don't get to look at their personnel files. Um, oh, what is going on? It's telling me. Is everybody able to hear? It's telling me my streaming software has left and that my show is going to end if I don't fix it. I don't know what to fix. Oh well, we're just going to
Well,
keep
why don't
going.
you just end it?
Well, I will, but
End it before it ends.
it's just coming and going. I don't understand what's going on. But anyway, I put a room, I added a new room or whatever, channel, whatever you want to call it, in Daniel's Truth for FOIA requests. So if any of you have any ideas for FOIAs that you'd like us to try or that you yourself would like to try to get information, please put it in there and or feel free and do it for yourself and for everybody else. And don't be shy. I the whole case needs lots of help. So and then I also wanted to say that I guess it's been a little confusing when you come to our Discord to Daniel's Truth because I haven't got it set up like a lot of Discord servers. And T1 has kept asking me, okay, I still trying to figure out where do I go to have general chat, general chit chat, general conversation. And I've been telling him, oh yeah, I know, I gotta. Well, he finally pinned me down the other night, and I got it set up. There's a general chat, and text chat, and a general voice chat right in the welcome section. So feel free to come over there and try to ask questions or engage in conversation or whatever. If there's nothing else, Alice, do you want to say goodbye to our friends in the chat?
I would just like to say thank you to everybody in the chat for coming. It's nice to see you all here, and I'm glad we've got a full house on the thumbs up. Thanks very much, and we'll see you same time next week.
Sounds good. On behalf of Kay and Cherie, we're going to go ahead and sign off now. So we'll see you on Tuesday. Until then, peace out.